Okay, let's see if I can get this to work. This camera holder. So, I had to turn down the music and put a hat on because I look like a really used, worn hat. So, it's just the angle. See, like a downward angle is better than this upward angle for talking, but music is a little too loud. And anyway, so today I had sort of like an experience that I hadn't had in such a long time that I don't even know if I ever put it into a video or, well, I mean, I know I wrote it down because I've been writing for, man, like 15 years. Wow. Oh. Like every day, about 15 years. Some of it's very upsetting stuff, others of it's inspiring, it's just random. Sometimes it's emotion, sometimes it's ideas and feelings and all sorts of stuff. But I've been writing for about 15 years. So it's sort of like a weird mixture of stuff. But I've only been making videos for about a year, and I was supposed to make a video like every day just to like have content. And the reason why that fell through wasn't because I didn't have enough content, but because I really just didn't put enough. I didn't really like my own videos enough. Like I don't have anybody that edits them, and I don't put, I don't even really have a computer to edit the stuff. I just sort of make it and put it on, and it was all for me anyway. But if I liked my videos, just like some videos I like on YouTube, I'd probably, watch, make them more. But, not all the time do I feel like it. And that's sort of the moral of my story today. It's not really a moral, it's just the subject of it. Is that so today I went to the gym and I was going to complete this running that I have, the running that I have scheduled out for, the next week. But I'm supposed to do this work tomorrow, and it's really physically demanding, and it's difficult and hard, and everything about it is just wrong. But either way, I was going to be doing it, and so today I sort of went for my run instead of tomorrow, which is when I should. But I'm too much of a bad person to quit. And anyway, so I sat last night and I tried to work my schedule out so I could just complete my task a day early instead of taking proper rest. And I knew it was kind of a gamble that I wouldn't be ready to run. But if I go tomorrow, I will be too tired. So it's like almost like there's no way I'm going to be able to make my deadline no matter what I do. No matter how I rearranged it in my head and no matter what I was going to do, there's almost no way I was going to do it. And I say that almost because today I went to the gym and I started my run and I got up to speed real quick and I was real prepared. But the problem is that it wasn't that I over it wasn't that I had too much confidence going in, like, oh, I can do whatever I want. But I'd also told myself that I was going to go out and eat out for a day because I never go out in public. And so last night I went out and I got something to eat. Now, it didn't prevent me from eating better or more or any of that, but it just kind of put me in a weird mood and it kind of just didn't take it so seriously. And so this, I'm gonna just interject, is that like at certain times you sort of have to take things more seriously and less seriously because if you're always like super diehard dedicated, you don't really you lose why you're doing it. Like if you're at the gym or if you're anywhere and people are bothering you because they're getting in your way, so to speak, like a cop. You know how cops have bad attitudes most of the time. No, I'm not going to go there. But like it's just like there's a mentality that you sort of strive for more than reaching your goal. It's a mentality thing. It's the way you feel. It's the way it makes you feel. It's the community. It's the way you make other people feel around you. It's more than just the numbers of getting it done or not getting it done. So, in one way, I had already given myself extra time because I'm actually sort of ahead of schedule. So I still have like I wasn't too upset and I didn't feel like I failed because I really was just like if I got in there and I really felt like I could do it and not just do it but like enjoy it, because there's times where you're just so hurting that it's just you either are going to hurt now or rest now and be able to do it later. And what I felt like is that I was just pushing so hard right now when I knew I wasn't ready that it was just going to hurt me in the long term. But it wasn't even just that. And let me explain that real quick. Is that I knew I could do it. It wasn't that I couldn't do it because my heart rate was actually better than it has been in a long time. And for those that you really don't even know about long distance running or any like real high intensity, and by high intensity I mean just really hard type of exercise, which isn't could be sprinting, but for going for 2 hour long runs, your heart rate increases steadily usually throughout the entire thing as stress, as you become dehydrated, and all the other different aspects of what it takes to run that far. And so I got into it and I realized that I just felt horrible. I just hurt really bad and I didn't want to be there. And all the signs were just telling me that this is the wrong time. But I got a preface or prefix that prefix or conclude it with is that like sometimes you feel horrible and once you get going you feel better and you just kind of thrive off of getting going. So it's really hard sometimes to know when you're wasting your time and not wasting your time, and sometimes you got to take those little bit of, I guess it's a risk, it's not really a risk, but you got to go in and start going, because sometimes you surprise yourself with, wow, I recovered that fast, or I pushed myself. Sometimes you get there and you don't want to do it all, but you just are in the mindset that the world sucks and you're going to do it. And other times you are just completely relaxed and you're just going with the flow. And this is going to touch on something I have said before that I do that most people don't, they don't even really understand, is I've always said that you have to weigh yourself, and everybody's like, oh, it's not about weight. Well, the reason why I weigh myself is because I lose so much water weight and because I actually burn so many calories that from a day to from an hour long basis, like in an hour I can lose, or in a couple hours I can lose up to 15 pounds. Like, I mean, I have, so it's not really a discussion. It's just that I have. And even if you're trying to discuss, or somebody it's not, I don't even care, because I know it's just all for me. I'm not trying to be like the Guinness Book of World Records of losing weight. But on a weekly basis, on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, because of the amount of calories that you're burning, and because I do the weightlifting too, and I've been doing all these different things, is that sometimes I can just tell how I know this sounds ridiculous, but I can tell if I'm hydrated and nourished just by how much I weigh. And when I weighed myself today, I was about 5 pounds less than I thought I was going to be. And some people think, well, it's because you're too heavy or because you're too light. And a lot of times it's just because, I can go into a whole nother thing, but it's just because you're just out of flux. Like, you just have lost too much weight too quickly, and your chemicals in your body is just sort of not reacting well to it. And I've talked about this before, is that like losing weight does take like, months, because you want to maintain. It's about your average weight. It's about maintaining a weight. And if you're putting out a lot of calories, and you have to put them in to get them out again. So even if you're fat or overweight, you're still going to lose your overall average weight, like less, then you're gonna then your little ups and downs of your like your short-term weight. Because if you drink like say for instance you drink a gallon of water, you put in your body, you're gonna weigh a pound more. So what happens is that the way you feel a lot of times will be based on just kind of how your normality. So like if you carry 207 pounds, which is the weight that I usually carry, then if you like go down 5 pounds drastically, that's like that is just when you get going, it makes you feel different. So I knew basically when I got on the scale today that I was like this, like I even like checked the scale to make sure that it was reading accurate, because I was just like, when I saw that, I really, it's not a mentality. I knew it's not that I couldn't do it, is that I just knew that I was worried about not eating enough yesterday, but I just was just seeing where I was. So in a way, I sort of won, even without really completing my goal. So what happened is that I ended up getting going, and I think I went about 4, maybe 5 miles. No, it was 3 to 4 miles, but that's also with, obviously a few miles of warm up and cool down on top of the 3 or 4 miles. So that's just 3 or 4 miles of straight, like, fairly decent hardcore running. And in that time, my heart rate was at a ridiculous optimal level. So what it does tell me is that like different foods, like running fasted and doing different things, it's all doable, but it's just the way that you feel sometimes. And like when I get into my training programs and the way that I train and my normality is that there are times where I will run with an empty stomach and I will start eating different foods because I'm not working out and I'm not trying to build muscle in a certain way, or I'm trying to optimize. Whereas sometimes I'm trying to optimize my muscle recovery and my muscle growth than I am really trying to say eating the right foods. So for like my cardiovascular system, and like cholesterol and sodium and all those different types of stuff, which is all like kind of, I could say that it's expert talk, but it's just more just kind of bullshit talk. But basically what sort of the goal is that like on the way back, enough stuff had happened to where like I hadn't had this feeling that like I knew I could do it. My mentality wasn't even that I wasn't going to be able to do it. It was just that I wasn't into it. But it also was me telling myself that I knew that if I just didn't do this, that I would be better off going forward. And that comes from me talking about when I first started running, when I knew that I would be better off if I didn't do these ridiculous distances, if I didn't take my body to the extreme. And well, I mean, there's pros and cons of everything, but now I'm to the point where I'm getting so close to my goal that I'm well beyond 50% of my way to my end goal. Whereas back then I was like, I wasn't even a percentage yet. I was still in the negatives of percentage of being there. But anyway, so part of it is that the things that I try to talk about are not so much like the expertise, the specifics of stuff. I try to talk about stuff that's like generalities that a lot of people will go through, even if they're not even doing what I'm doing. And what I like to talk about a lot is weight, because people seem to think that weight is like beauty and like all this stuff, like if you're a little bit heavier and like all this crap. Whereas people don't understand the reason why I'm getting on the scale and weighing myself before and after, like every single day, isn't because I'm looking in the mirror and seeing my physique. It's because I'm trying to figure out how much water I'm carrying at the moment, and if I ate enough the week leading up to it. And they don't get that, like, when I get on the scale and I'm like upset because of some number, they don't know. Like, I've heard and I've seen people, like, if I get on the scale and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm too small They think that I'm meaning like they like if I say I'm too big or too small, they don't realize that sometimes I mean like I didn't eat enough, or I might have gone a little bit over my diet, or like I've gone to the other extreme of it where it's just like I'm outputting so many calories that I cannot intake enough or feel good about eating enough. It does get to the point where you don't even feel like eating, and you're just eating because you need to eat, which is where I am literally today, which is why last night I was like, oh, if I don't have to eat, I might not want to eat. So that's why I always sort of like, I try to lightly touch on all my subjects. And so, like, this is the funny part about where I'm going to go, because this is something that I wrote about the other day, but I didn't actually make a video about. And so, like, up in this corner, or like right here in my face, or just, a different screen, I'm going to have my editor put a graph. And at the top of the graph, there's two different things, okay? There is your weight, and then there is your long-term weight and your short-term weight, okay? And the whole graph represents a year. And in that graph, for me, because I'm going to give myself as an example, is that my weight always fluctuates because it fluctuates with the seasons. But my seasons, this is really hard to follow, but that's why I'm going to have a graph and like all these cool things going on so you can follow it real well, is that throughout the seasons is that when it gets cold, I don't go out as much, and I tend to focus on weight training and getting bigger and stronger, and like using weight training, and I don't do as much cardio. And it's also just to give myself a break, give my joints a break, give my muscles a break in a certain different way, even give my diet a break. And so generally once a year I get fatter, and then on 6 months later I'm usually the skinniest I'm going to get. And since I've been running and working out, my weight went up 20 pounds. I started when I really started this about 5 years ago. I started with weight training with a little bit of cardio because I wanted to get stronger and I couldn't do any cardio. So I kept getting bigger and I was building muscle, but I was eating a lot, and I'm not taking steroids. I'm not taking any type of, substance to I was having to get natural, nutrients. So I was overeating because I wanted to make sure that I was giving my body everything it needed. And so I really went from about 205 to 225. Now, granted, I wasn't looking muscular, I was looking fatter, but I was doing it with a purpose. So like, even though I was like 20 pounds heavier, I felt better because I was lifting, 100 pounds more, and I was still meeting my goal at the time. Well, I wasn't really meeting my goal, but I was getting closer to my goals than I wasn't on the weightlifting thing. And then I realized I was getting too heavy for my cardio, and my back was hurting, and I had to go through my entire cardio thing. So what ended up happening was that I only lifted for probably 4 or 5 months. And then I started cardio. And I will say is that they do go hand in hand, but the way that I did it was, my goals were too lofty. And if I didn't do it the way I did, I felt like I never was going to get there. And I wanted to see where I was. So I was starting out, if I needed to run a marathon, I was going to do a marathon even if I died halfway through. Now, I never actually made a marathon distance, but I made it to 23 miles. And barely. I had to take breaks. It took me 9, 10, 11 hours. And it was hell. It was the worst thing I've ever done. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done. So what happened is that in that first year, I went down 10 pounds, and then I was 115. But then when I got heavier a year later, I was back up to 225. But following one more year, I had actually dropped 20 pounds. And then my heaviest, I was 215. And then the following year, I went down I hit barely into the 190s, so right below 200, and then I went up to 215. And then another year went by, and then I was down another 10 pounds. And that fluctuation comes because most people don't count that if you are really starting back from ground zero, where you have fat in you and not muscle, is that your overall weight will stay in sort of flux a little bit because muscle does weigh more than fat. And that's also sort of kind of a weird way of it's a nice way of saying that fat people are ugly for bodybuilding. But the truth is that muscle does weigh a tiny bit more than fat overall. And so even though you're losing 10 pounds, if you're continuously building the muscles in your legs and your abs and your upper body, is that losing that 10 pounds, because they say, but like a lot of people, like if you go to someone, they say, lose the weight gradually. And they'll say like, maybe a pound a week. Well, let's say that you lose 20 pounds in a year, but you're gaining how much in muscle? So, and then if you go on a break because you want to like get off your diet or whatever, that you're going to gain more weight back, but it also could be intentional because sometimes you're doing it unintentionally and sometimes you're doing it intentionally. Sometimes you're like, I'm just going to take a break. I don't really care. I'm just going to eat some stuff. I'm going to get back. And then you realize I shouldn't have done it to the degree I did. And every time if you keep going, is that those times become less and less. But eventually what I try to explain is that like the pyramid is that if you have in a year, is that because of how the weather is and what you're eating and how you're training or what you're training for depends on where your weight is going to be. And if you are worried, if you're more concerned about the weight you're at and the way that you look, your performance is definitely 100% going to be impacted to some degree. If you're not substituting it with like something you inject into your body or some sort of miracle drug or some sort of drug to substitute what nutrition you would get from food. So for me and for the above average person, but for most people, is that the way that you're going to go is that you're going to go up and down and up and down. But if you're consistently still losing weight, then it doesn't matter how much you weigh or not weigh, because you have to take into account your muscle mass, you have to take in your cardiovascular, you got to take in what you're eating, and sort of just your mindset. And so the weight is more of an indicator of like your progress than it is the way that you look. Like once you get to a certain point, the only way you're going to look bigger is that if you weigh more. So it's not about weight, you're just going to be getting bigger and bulkier. And so I guess one of my big things about weight and why I stress weight is because to me weight is about immediate health, where I need to consume like a certain literage or poundage of water in order for my body to efficiently work in one of my workouts, because I will go through, several thousand calories in a 2-hour period. So to rephrase this again, to sort of like get my graph to work real well, is that when you start out is that you can't burn as many calories but you may be working out for a longer time period. So what's happening as you get better, especially with running, is that you're burning more calories quicker in a shorter amount of time and still going a further distance. Whereas when you begin and you can still go the distance and you are probably still burning roughly the same amount of calories. It's taking you hours much longer to do it. And so what ends up happening is that you realize that there's like kind of like hacks and cheats to your weight, where you know that like, okay, tomorrow I need to run, and you have to like you may like build up fat reserves. And this all sounds weird, and this is why I'm going to specify, this is why I don't say that it's like an elite or a specified talk, is because the reason why I build up my fat reserves is because I want to be able to lift afterwards, because I'm not just running. I'm not just going for, a marathon. I'm also lifting quite heavy right now too. So the fat allows me to maintain to be able to get through a multiple day workout, not like a multiple hour workout. Even though I work out, when I lift for about 3.5 hours, and when I run for usually no less than an hour and a half, and sometimes up to 4 and 5 hours. So my fat reserves why I'm eating over and why I keep gaining weight is because I want to make sure that I always have something in my tank, or I will basically flatline like I did today and not feel like running or wanting to run. But I also have to go back real quick and say that last statement was false, because today I could have easily, not only like, I wasn't only easily gonna be able to make it, is that I was like, I probably was in a better zone than I have been in a while, just because I didn't overeat. Because I ate like a normal amount, and my body was like just feeling like, wow, like perfect amount. But I just lifted for 3.5 hours yesterday, so the way that my muscles felt was a lot different. So the whole point of this big long conversation is sort of just to explain is that this is the first time for me that I know that I could have easily done a task, but I know that in the long term it would have done it was going to be harder. Like, I guess also, to put it in a different way, is that at that time I stopped, I knew I could finish, but how comfortable and how happy and I was going to be immediately after doing it was another story. And I can also say is that a lot of, when I actually said that just now, I might have actually bogged down at the end and not been able to get there, because I know that I was 5 pounds of calories and food and water shy of where I need to be. So it's just interesting that, like, that it's all come down to where, like, I can tell how I'm doing before I even start. It's not even about when I get out there. It's like before I even go, like I can just tell, like there's indicators, and they're not just like, am I having a bad day? Am I having a good day? It's like, it's real life, like real, like hard fact numbers. Like, I'm not feeling good now. I haven't eaten enough. I didn't put enough water on me. Or like even your mindset. Like sometimes like you'll be forgetting things, and you're not functioning like you would at your highest level. And so like when you put it all together and there's just multiple things that are piling up that you can just tell, like you're just like, something's off. Sometimes the best thing is to just stop and walk away and enjoy whatever else you can do, and just prepare for something even harder, in my opinion, for what I'm trying to do, and just to see if I can do it. But I have enough time to mess around with, to where I think I'm to a point where I've already reached my goal. I'm just now proving it again, because I've already proved it once. I'm not really past anything I haven't done already, but I'm just, God, there's so many. So like, it's such a compound thing. Okay, so just in case I don't even understand and this doesn't make any sense, is that why I'm saying I've already proved it, but I'm proving it again, is that, for instance, I'm running about almost an hour faster over a 15-mile trip. So like, I'm me proving it is like one thing, because I've already done the distance in one session under my parameters. But now I'm doing it at a certain intensity, a higher intensity. And so when it all really comes back down to it, is that it's just a whole sort of, it's why I was saying is that if you're doing it and you're getting so upset and everything is bothering you, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And if you're doing it for like, like if you have like health issues, like I've had health issues, and or you're just bored, or it's just something to do with your time. I mean, there's so many mental things that will bog you down from like reaching your goal, because it really can be some days you don't know why you're doing it, and it can be very challenging some days, is that the vast majority of the time, if you're not like getting some sort of good feeling out of it, like the other day I ran and I didn't think I was going to feel good, but when I got done, I felt really good. Not about accomplishing my goal, I just physically, like chemically, like just felt good. I mean, I was pissed off and kind of went on a tyrant, but like I felt good, and that was why I was able to do that. So, like, I guess why I keep saying and I keep reiterating is that, like, I can't tell all the time if people are like happy or sad at the gym. And quite honestly, I don't really care. But, like, there are times where people get so upset that it does impact me directly. And, and it more so in the past than it has recently, which is kind of nice. But where people get so frustrated and so intent and so selfish and so caught up in like some sort of numbers race or goal and all the stuff that they lose track of just the whole point of it. And I guess why I think most people lose, this is more off the beaten path, is that like most people spend most of their time in an office, in a car, they're trying to impress everybody, and they are going to the gym for superficial reasons, to like brag about some sort of number that they get to about something, or they're trying to do something because of some social pressure, and they don't get to really enjoy, walking from here to there, or like pushing themselves because it feels good, because it does feel good. And most people don't realize is the the good it's not a feeling of accomplishment. Your body really gets high, like you really feel good when you do these things. And too many people, and by too many people I mean damn near everybody, doesn't understand that. And it is really hard to find people that are enjoying the process. Most of them are doing it for, I guess, Instagram, and the other people are doing it for whatever reasons, but few people seem to be doing it because they want to like be able to improve their interaction with the world around them. Besides like the people that are judging them. And so for me, I guess today was just like a weird epiphany. It was just like, it was like, wow, like I stopped myself from going through hell, because I knew there was no point in doing it. Because I knew I had pushed and pushed and pushed so much that I was so far ahead that there was no reason to even try. I would do better just making sure that all of my indicators were telling me that everything was perfect, than to push through and just be like possibly better off tomorrow. Which is really why I was going back to the weight thing, because people still don't understand is that when you build up to a certain amount of time, that your weight is a fluctuation between day and week and month. And a lot of times you're not weighing yourself because you want to look, because you want the number to be down. That's just a number. That those numbers equal like it's fuel for your body, and it is an indication of health. And it isn't, but it's not a determining factor. If you weigh 10 pounds more than you like, maybe you just lose 10 pounds, but in other ways just use that 10 pounds and do something with it. And so anyway, usually I feel like I ramble, but this, with my charts and all my gloriousness that was going on, and my editor is going to be just so happy with me, and I'm going to get 1 million views on the YouTubes, and everything is going to be so awesome. And I'm going to remember this video because it's above elite. It's not, elite is such a crappy word now for me. It's just the numbers and all of the different ingredients just mean something different to me now. And I realized when the people that were telling me that you need to do this and this and this, that they were doing it in sort of like an like for a selfish sort of superficial reason because other people told them that, but they didn't even really figure it out on their own. They didn't grasp it and enjoy it. They didn't understand the weigh in process and all this stuff. They're trying to trick themselves and everybody else instead of smiling and using what they know to their advantage. And so sometimes it's just the overall experience and then it is just some goal for the day. So on that note, I'm going to try to rest up and get enough calories so I can do an absolutely insane, stupid thing tomorrow. So I just went from like being like, oh, have a good time with it to willingly going to hell for really bad reasons. But if you get anything from it, it's just to chill out a little bit, you know, and check your scale because you do need to know how much you weigh.